Welcome to Open Table Realms Campaign Diary number 3. There are 2 previous ones. You don't need to have watched them. I do them every 20 sessions. A session is about 2.5 hours, so this is about 50 hours of playing AD&D. And this is Open Table. People can still just about join. We've got 9 active players with another joining. I'm slightly changing how we're running stuff. So there might be some, bit of capacity beyond that, or we might be capping out soon. But maybe you can join. Yes. Essentially, this is a game started just getting a few people together. They are militiamen, but special adventuring militiamen working for the Dagford militia, but with increasing interests of their own. And they have many jobs and interests, and they do lots of things. We've got 4 adventures that they've been on in this time period. Session 60, massive session actually. They picked up. They were rewarded with 58,000 gold. So it shows, that they really made out. They found a couple of big treasures. They managed to bypass those, actually, on the whole, with fairly little danger, comparatively. Though they did have to fight their way through a large body of trolls and orcs and goblins. That was a very fun and memorable session. You can see we've got locations here. So this is, for those who remember from last time, I've slightly changed the layout just to make things easier to understand. By the way, if my camera cuts, not the screen cap should be fine, but the camera, just don't worry about it. My camera's on the way out. So you can see I've got the stuff tracked by date, every single character tracked by date. So you can see Dwarf Holder, Ilan, they're resting with the dwarves who are their allies on the morning of 13th Eliasis, which is August. Kythorn is May. Is there a flame rule anywhere? Flame rule there is July. It's kind of Kythorn's June, sorry. Flame rule is July. And Eliasis is August. Keeping strict time records is important. The realms, because as I said, the realms has some funny stuff to do with intercalary days, which are fun, cute, but it does mean you're occasionally adding one onto a 30-day month functionally. You can see that there's 4 groups technically, but really because these are both in the Ebon Downs, Ricky is part of this group. So there are 3 groups. Players have, generally speaking, up to 4 characters, and some have 1 or 2. But the base of the point is people have stables of characters. They play based on training availability and geographical availability. The Ebon Downs group is a lot further north. So we've got then the Dagford groups. Or the Ilan and Dagford groups. So you've got this kind of spread of characters, spread of resources. We now have to, again, an update for people who were here last time. There's many more channels to sort stuff. There's Henchman and Stash. I've just added today an NPCs list, as well as and a graveyard actually, and inactive PC, just so that I can save on characters because we don't have Discord Nitro. So we've got 4 adventures to talk about that have happened or been finished since we last recapped. Now, we were in the middle of Rock Island Tower, which is a puzzle dungeon, and since then we've done stuff Silverwisp Swamp, including just a couple of adventures really, including something called the Great Willow, which is available on my Patreon. We then went to Ambugul Manor after that, and then we returned to Ilan. If you were here last time, you remember we briefly visited Ilan. So yeah, there have been essentially 5 adventures because of Silverwisp Swamp being quite long and being a couple of adventures worth. Many characters have advanced, in some cases multiple levels. At this point, this is not cashing out the XP from here, but you can see because here people are going to be getting thousands and thousands. There's going to be something like 9.5 or 8.5 XP shares for this party that was at Ilan. So we're going to have a nearly 6th level wizard, a nearly 5th level priest, nearly 5th level thief, because Robin was there. And is there anyone else who's there? And a couple of nearly 5th level thieves, in fact, because Jack was there too. So we'll be well into the mid levels. We're just touching them now. One thing, obviously, running relatively short sessions compared to some people who run like 6 hours, and running fortnightly, and running with a stable means that you're like, oh, it's been a few years play. Surely everyone's like 20th level. People are, hitting 5th and 6th because of that that basically suits me. It's fine, but it's certainly a cost of a campaign that works like that. If you're running 4 times a week, then people's stables. Gary was really looking at people leveling, getting to caps and stuff within a few months to a year. That's obviously not what we're seeing. And I have a similar experience. My other big, now 6-year-old, 7-year-old, 6-year-old stable-based game, which started 6 years ago this month. That you've got characters just about to hit 10th and things like that. It's the price of doing business. But yeah, Rock Island Tower Puzzle Dungeon. Well, I will write it up and publish it at some point. It's very much a funhouse dungeon and very much intentionally framed like that. There's been shapes seen at the Wizard's Tower, the old ruined Wizard's Tower in the middle of the river. So they get a boat and they go there, and lots of exploring, lots of fun. We'd started it last time. In fact, the most important thing that happened, I think, there's lots of things. There's lots of kind of fun set pieces. I think funhouse dungeons are sort of about set pieces, really, in lots of ways. I don't mean they're just about that. There can be lots of things, but a really good funhouse dungeon is one where it's a jewel box. You're putting lots of fun stuff in. The players like. That was a fun, fairly small dungeon. That had some puzzles, and there were some puzzles they weren't completely sure about. There's some things they didn't completely solve. There was something where, because I'd had some rat tunnels going into the complex, so where there was a tunnel, like a secret tunnel, going to a room that was locked, so they'd found that, and we'll get to that in a second because that's where the most memorable thing happened. They were like, oh, there's rat tunnels, because I was like, well, the encounter is giant rats, and they're like, we have a gnome, we're going to explore that, which did mean I had to expand from being 2 overland areas, and the old kind of workshop cellars of the Wizard's Tower. I then had to add some caves underneath, which was fun, but that's good. But the players pushing you and finding cracks in what you're doing is enjoyable, mostly for me. I like the improv, and I like having to come up with something quickly, whether it's in the session or within 2 weeks, based on the hour or 2 at most I have to do it. Yeah, so that was good. But the memorable thing was that I had a gelatinous cube squished up in this secret tunnel, which the players just bungled into. One of the players had already picked up some gauntlets of fumbling and discovered they were gauntlets of fumbling by trying to use them in this combat, hoping they were gauntlets of ogre strength. Don't worry, he's just earned some gauntlets of ogre strength as that character, the same character who survived. And the gelatinous cube was doing some damage, messed up some people, killed a hireling. The other light footman who was present got the killing blow and did like, I think, hit twice in the combat and did 11 damage or something with a spear. And so I said that character could be promoted to henchman, and so we have, and this is the first henchman. We've since earned our second henchman. We'll talk about that. But yeah, you can see here that's the stash I've got, and then and I think here's up to date Von Karma now. Though he's about to get a half share, that will take him to presumably pushing, if he survives, if he gets home to 3rd level. And he serves Lord of Lorfindar Jr., our priest of Corellon, who, using a random name generator, came up with the name of the nephew of the Elven Lord in this campaign. But yeah, you can see he's well equipped. They give him good stuff, splint armor. He's well armed with javelins. And Grush, the orc fighter. You can see, by the way, we've got base loyalties, which is calculated using the DMG, and temporary bonuses. Von Karman's about to get a chunky temporary bonus from his payday. Okay, back if we can. There we go. Great. So yeah, Rock Island Tower was survived with a big haul that led to our first ever use of the XP cap. I could perhaps hew closer to the DMG. I'm more or less, because I don't always think about it, as I don't always remember to set it. I do it till just a XP point below the next level. Gary actually says in the 1E DMG you should cap after the session in which they go beyond up to 1 point. So at that point, they can't go again. And I think I have run it like that in the one other campaign where it's ever come up. the XP cap. But in this case, yeah, I have not. But good payday there. Still some things I don't fully understand. Some locked boxes that they're leveling up thieves have not been able to unlock when they're 4th level. I imagine they will all try again. Those two that have are about to have a big payday if they can get home, and they've got some useful stuff to do that with. Yeah, so that was Rock Island Tower. Silverwisp Swamp, they were already up there. This was actually something where the party had first split ever to send a party to the north to gather some flowers. And they went north, and we did like 2 sessions, maybe, I think, in Silverwisp Swamp. And then that, we did the kind of travel there, some bits, they looked around, and then we finished it, and then we did one more session where they found some of these magical flowers, and then we left it because of the time, the time lapse, and because the other group, had now finished training before that group had travelled north, if you see what I mean. It had been that the training group was further ahead in time, that is to say, and so I had a kind of time debt to pay, and then it was that the northern group had because of their travel. So I moved to the new group, the group down south, and that was what led to Rock Island Tower, and possibly something before that, but I think certainly Rock Island Tower. So then we returned to Silverwisp Swamp, and they still had flowers to collect, they still wanted to explore stuff. You want to get XP for the level, basically. You don't want to just be like, okay, go home now. And it was a party with, I think it had a 3rd level fighter or something like that. It had a 2nd level fighter. But basically that was about it. It had a couple of 2nd level characters, and it was in a pretty dangerous area with wilderness encounter tables. But though there were eventually a couple of deaths, which were rectified and made right, actually, due to the circumstances, they actually got through it okay. I think essentially with a great deal of luck, and a bit of strategy about what they were doing, thinking like, where do we need to go next? They continued travel south through the swamp. They found an abandoned village, Grim Hollow. Basically, this, by the way, I'd stolen the overmap off Dungeons and Dragons Online just because I'd seen it described the area, and so then I had them keep going south. Not I, as in they kept going south. That was what was there on the map. And the southern area, the northern area was swamps, and the village, and the southern area was barrows and a Great Willow. And there was a big mass barrow that seemed to be occupied. There was some sort of fortress on the southern end of this valley, and they went down there. They met a random gnome. That was a random encounter on the DMG encounter tables, demi-human subtable, and he gave them some advice and information. They kept travelling south. This one thing is you should really press your encounter luck as a DM, not as a player. Do what you like, but as a DM, you should lean into the tables. And there is, again, this is something about experience and just you get used to making stuff up. And maybe there's some also natural desire or interest or aptitude for it. But there are a couple of really fun overland encounters, and some, let's say 3 or 4 important overland encounters. All of which was significant. And this one they got information from. They kept going south and they got to the fortress, which was actually a fortified temple, a temple of Kalemvor, which was in a kind of loose state of siege from these undead who ruled the big mound. And the high level priest there was like, no, you don't go and try to fight them, they're tough. But could you please carry back a message to Neverwinter saying that we've been stuck here? We came here to find out what's gone wrong. Something's obviously gone very wrong. Please send relief. And the characters got to train some of them, or rather, Dougal did, one of them. And then and a couple of others, were ready to train or nearly ready to train. So they took Ricky north. The druid had to go and train with the druid. That was one thing that couldn't happen at the temple fortress. So they went to the Great Willow, and because they had no money, the druid was like, okay, well, I don't really care about money that much. Just go and, balance the ecosystem down in the weird caves underneath. And there was some basic, go and kill 6 bullywugs. It's actually a very, very cheap training mission because of the dangers of the Great Willow. Game-wise, it's that the Great Willow was a second to fourth level thing. You had some, a bunch of second level characters and a few first level characters desperately trying to get to second. And what was relevant here, this is very relevant. On the way there, they camped. They camped opposite some orcs who were lost. They were. This was off the tables, and they. The orcs had been raiding. They'd gone lost, and most of them were dead. So there's whatever it was, 12 left, 15, and they just wanted to escape. And so the party was like, look, they didn't fight. They made a truce, and the reaction roll led with that. And then there was another random encounter overnight, which was giant lizards. And the giant lizards crawled up, and there was a horrendous battle, like lots of injuries, lots of damage. I don't think, crazily, none of the PCs got knocked out, even. But all of the orcs were slain, except one, their leader, third level fighter, who was pretty pivotal in finally winning versus this large group of giant lizards. And that's one thing, is the PCs had the ability. They had range damage climbing up trees, and they had clerics healing. So they had, and I think there was possibly something else in there, like possibly some other clerical magic user spells that helped. But the point, there was that party. What did that party have? Let's have a check here. Antonius Grush, Orphan Odmund. It had a very strong barbarian. And it had a cleric as well. So they and a psionicist. So they just about got through that and took the orc into service. The party saved the orc's life. The orc gave them a life debt service, and because the psionicist was the third level psionicist was the senior character. He was the only third level character. Grush now follows him. Now I'd say just we'll hop back at the speed of very wet honey, like very thick honey, to hear these scores were just rolled up at the time live, and Von Karma at strength 17, that was okay. I didn't alter these based on complete book of humanoids. I just was like, that's what his stats are. He rolled natural 18/61 in strength. We're so because he had an 18, so we assigned it strength, obviously, and he had his own magic longsword. That was his one thing. He has since been given this magic hand axe, which he will, when he can train, he will spend a proficiency slot on. You can see he's still getting there. He got a certain amount of XP out of the adventure, but not enough to level. But yes, that was because the barbarian had been using it, but wasn't great with it. Basically, it was magic, so it was useful versus. But he wasn't proficient, so he was taking a penalty that was cancelled by the plus. But now, essentially, he's like, I won't use that anymore. He can have the hand axe, and so Grush will train into that on top of his current ones. So this guy's very good, as you can tell, stat wise, 22 HP. He adding a third level fighter to the party made it a lot more survivable. It meant you had a third level psionicist, third level fighter, and second level fighter as well. And a second level barbarian. So you had a pretty both of them were pretty good for HP and armor. So you had a pretty tough party for fighting with a little bit of magical support. The psionicist giving indirect stuff mostly, and Willem. I think they were joined by the bard and Antonius later, but at this point, you have Bast the fighter, who's first level. Orphan is a thief. Willem is a cleric, so a cleric with horrendous stats. Veteran player Andrew chose to keep them, and it's been a good story for Willem so far. Then they go down, and essentially they get through this, and there's a lot of hijinks. It's interesting because the barrows, I'd say one thing I forgot to mention this, the barrows that they had occasionally been raiding and investigating on the way south to the Temple of Clemvor and from the way north, and will be relevant again on the way south back to the Temple of Clemvor. I used a mixture of things, barrow maze and some other stuff, to provide underground locations. And they found treasure that way, and that was good. So that gave a flavour-wise break from Rock Island Tower. Now, I'd say the Great Willow isn't a puzzle dungeon, and it's not a funhouse dungeon. in the way I'd use that term. But it's a weird dungeon. I decided to make basically virtually all the creatures there are Fiend Folio and Monster Manual 2. Many in their second edition forms in a couple of cases, and this is in the version I put on Patreon. I adapted them. I put together their stats from first, like Doombats. I don't think were ever adapted, for instance. Or if it wasn't Doombats, there's something like that that just had never been adapted. And maybe Scum Creepers as well. Like there are a couple that haven't been adapted to second edition, which is rare. They really did scrape the barrel by the mid to late 90s on like monstrous compendium annuals and stuff like that. So yeah, that was it was a tonal shift again. So you could kind of have Funhouse Dungeon, and then you shift over to tomb mobbing over a wilderness when you're underleveled and everything's horrendously dangerous. And the tombs were very much you had to judge whether or not it was one you could take, that was good. That was like I randomised the selection from a table of what they could have, where they could go, and that meant that there was no like these are definitely safe tombs because they're close. And like usually having difficulty hints is good rather than cheating. In this case, I think the idea look this could be anything, and you just got to have a look and decide. That felt like the right vibe. It was whilst doing this, incidentally, that they random encountered a Gynosphinx, who they also got some information off of. And they had a positive reaction on. I think actually, they also random encountered some cattle, which are like domestic animals or whatever. I think it was herd animal was the result. And I think it was some kind of wild cattle basically because they're up in the hill areas, and I was like, okay. This has got loose from somewhere else over time. But yeah, so then you have the tonal shift down into the weird, strange. They got trapped and lost via, well, kind of. They got done by some Obliviacs on the way into a room. They then were like just run through the room, get to the other door, the other side. The other side was a slope. It was a wet scree slope with a magical stream flowing uphill. So they all kind of tumble down that into a kind of sump with some scum creepers in, and then they're like, well, we don't want to go up because there's an Obliviacs there, let's go around. They do stuff. This is actually how they find the bullywugs they're actually meant to kill, because they've already killed a Blindhim and been like, wow, great, that's what we're here for, and then they realise it probably wasn't what they were there for. But it was a very entertaining encounter. They find and kill enough bullywugs, including a shaman, and maybe the chieftain. I don't know. I need to check that. But there's so many bullywugs on the way out, because it's their nest is the way out to go back up. Because essentially you've got to think, there are some things to do with what matters about height. Mostly I'm using it as a kind of this is a fairly flat map, as it were. Like there's not much depth to it. So essentially to get back up, as it were, to go north on the map, you had to go through the bullywugs. So they're like, okay, we won't do that. Let's go back down. And they go back down and they explore a bit, and they're finding various things through this. They deal with some brown mold at one point very cleverly. Actually, they see some Infra picks up some mold covering something, stonework or whatever. That doesn't matter. And they're like, okay. And then they're like, okay, that with light at some distance away. They're like, okay, there's some brownish mold, and they're guessing, and they're like, and someone remembers, I think this is the one that sucks up heat, and gives that its yeah. In fact, I think they don't use infra at the point. They don't see it with infra, but they see it with light 15 feet away. And then they send the barbarian in with a glow globe with magical light, like 5 foot light, it's candlelight basically. And they go, and he removes the mold, and he gets I think I think that's the thing, is he doesn't touch it, or he doesn't give his own body heat. He very carefully scrapes it off, or whatever it is, and then they get the treasure from underneath it. Eventually, they go back up via the Obliviacs, and now the Silencist has captured the Obliviacs moss creature replication of him. And I'm not sure what we're going to do with that, but again, memorable. We then switch south. To Amberghoul Manor, and this is following up stuff you'll have heard about in the previous campaign diaries if you've been here, which was because again now we've got the timelines are that the northern group is far ahead. You can still see, I'm not sure, they may still have the furthest date. They do, 26th of August, 26th of Eliasis, whereas 22nd, because that's because of Gaston being awful at training, essentially. Like 2 weeks worse than all his friends. So he had to stay. But the player had another character available, so that was fine. As they go to Ambergul Manor, and this is following up the instant of the going to the Lizard Swamp and going to the ruined Temple of Amonitor and fighting the weird, sickly, corrupted lizard men, fighting a black dragon, actually kind of just about making an alliance with it because they'd rescued its baby from some outlaws at a different location. Like it's the egg, and once the egg attached a certain number of days later, that which was fun, by the way, having this kind of black dragon wormling as part of the party, which was definitely part of how they got out of that. But then this set up the fact that then they'd picked up this guardswoman called Mädchen, and Mädchen had gone around with them, fought with them, fired her bow, and then one night they woke up. I gave them a chance, a surprise check, basically, a very disadvantaged surprise check, and they rolled like 10 or whatever, so they were fine. They got up and saw her as that she was breaking into the elemental altar that they retrieved from Thosfiern and the Sun Swallower, the Black Dragon. She smashed it, taken something out, and then just left, basically. And so, which meant they were very angry at Mädchen. It did mean that a downtime thing was when she turned back up in Daggerford, they were like, "We're arresting you," and they had a fight with her, like a bit of a brawl in the street. And it turned out she had been missing. Her identity had obviously been assumed by whoever this was, who had taken on her appearance. So yeah, they were following up that with where we know that basically the point is one of the elemental altars had been stolen from the Flotian estates by the Red Wizards. They'd caught Arvik Zaltos and hanged him, but his accomplice Darwa Dallin got away. A second one had then been stolen by Thosfiern and recovered by the party, but stolen by the fake Mädchen. But they'd heard of this the collaborator of Arvik Zaltos, Darwa Dallin, and that she had hired people and that she'd gone to Ambergul Manor, and presumably to look for something to do with this. A ruined manor, again, just on the edge of the Lizard Swamp. So they go via Cromshold, where their allies are. They pick up, actually, Sergeant Duran, the one of the soldiers who had survived the last battle. They'd had 2 survivors go home with them of men that had been sent by the Baroness to help retrieve her stolen property. Unsuccessfully, most of them, on the whole. But yes, so Sergeant Duran went with them, and they went to Ambergul Manor. And he was an interesting one that basically it became apparent fairly quickly to the players that they were underleveled. As in that, they were a couple of levels too weak to clear this. They could do stuff, and they did do stuff. But yes, they were fragile. And they worked out some puzzles, and they fought some. They defeated. This was actually a kind of very impressive achievement in the context. Is there were a couple of Minotaurs, and they defeated one, and then I think using a command initially, actually, or something like that, got the other to flee. So held the field for themselves, just about survived, taken some injuries, and explored a bit more. Found a bunch of stuff. Found a Medusa. Found more Minotaurs who they negotiated with. In fact, and in fact, they rescued this dwarf who is part of Darwa's gang. He was looking for his son, and an Ogrelon who had escaped with his son. They might have the elemental altar, the final elemental altar, because Darwa Dallin had been turned to stone. The party did, because they're like, we don't actually think we can get to the point of finding Darwa Dallin. They didn't actually get the bounty for Darwa Dallin for retrieving her, dead or alive or whatever the situation is. Apparently petrified, according to Thor the dwarf. But they did get information on this. They rescued Thor. They got some stuff. They left, and then prepared to go to Ilafan. Partly because Thor was like, we were somewhat associated with those dwarves at Ilafan at one point, so maybe my son would go there, And that's what led to the last 5 sessions or so, leading up to session 60, the big anniversary session. And they'd gone to Ilafan before, gone to one entrance, fought some orcs, and then left after having taken some injuries, because it was a party with maybe a 2nd level character leading it, and the rest, like maybe 2 2nd levels and 5 1st levels or something like that. It was a weak party, And again, it's interesting. Should you never give your party the choice or ability to overstep themselves? Should you say, "Here's a rumor to a 10th level dungeon"? They don't know it's a 10th level dungeon. They go there and die. Probably not, unless very well telegraphed. But on the other hand, the fact that in an open world, the players are going to increasingly pick up different kinds of rumors, plots, inverted commas, are going to advance. In this case, it's a particular set of adventures based around these elemental altars that are going missing. Ilafan is just a thing. It's a big mountain, and apparently some dwarves had gone there some time ago. So it's just what it is, isn't it? You know, these are different things you can do, and there are different level characters. Like this party could put together. Remember, at this point, especially think of it. You know, a 5th level wizard, a 4th level psionicist, a 4th level cleric, couple of 4th level thieves, and I don't think they can't get to a 4th level fighter yet, actually. But they've got some other fighters too. They can come up with a average 4th level party, pretty much. They're just about at that point. And so you can concentrate your forces to a high level, like to a truly mid-level adventure at this point. But they left Ilafan the first time, much like they left the Ambergul Manor, in some difficulty because of a kind of a deadbolt block that was blocking the way out. They'd pushed down and then had gone back up. They used some potions of etherealness, actually. They used some doses of gassy form, that's it, or gaseous form, sorry, to sort that out by sending their strongest people to the other side on the uphill to push it down, because that was easier, which was very good use of magic items. And in terms of people shouldn't hoard consumables too much. People also are much more likely to use healing potions quickly because there's an immediate obvious usage. I have 1 hit point. We're in a dungeon. I need healing. It's the same as a spell. It's just not renewable. Whereas more niche ones, like there's a totem of suggestion and a powder of sleep, and they're consumables. They can't be replaced. Same with these potions of gaseous form. They've got some other potions too, actually, which they're. But the point is that these are going to. These are going to be used in more specialist circumstances, and it's okay for them to be somewhat hoarded. You want there to be a bit of a dynamic between the two, I think, of immediate use versus never using. They go to Ilafan feeling stronger. They send a 4th level wizard with a 3rd level priest and a couple of 3rd level thieves and everyone and some 2nd levels to go there. Average level 3rd, and that's a good level. They still face some very tough fights. And they find out information. They find out they find out there's factions. There's Duergar here. That's a big thing. Is there weren't Duergar here? There now are Duergar here. Because many moons ago, I know this was in the first campaign diary, they gave them a partial map to Ilafan. They gave them the general location, some of the entrances, and the Duergar somehow found their way here and have set up a base here and are looking for ancient dwarven artifacts from before the Duergar went deep. Who are shield dwarves in Forgotten Realms lore. Before they'd gone into the depths, the Duergar, knew about these relics, these ancient relics, and they want them because they're the true dwarves, right? So they want their stuff, and they've heard there's some of them in Ilafan in secret caches and the Temple of Moradin. There's a secret royal panoply, and there's some secret, very old religious items in the Temple of Moradin, or not secret, they just are. And so this is, I think, by the way, just in terms of cool campaign impact, that this is stuff that the fact they're fighting Duergar at various points, and these Duergar can enlarge with a wizard level bonus to their damage, percentile bonus. So if their hit points are 11, they are an 11th level wizard for casting enlarge, which means that they get 110% bonus to their damage when they roll it. Which, just they can put a lot of damage out, and they can go invisible, and this is all at will. And so they're not individually really strong. If they're just normal Duergar, they have very annoying powers, as one of my other the players in one of my other games know well. So they're fighting these Duergar, and this time at least they're killing someone, like the debacle down in the Underdark where they're captured by the Duergar, which led to this trading of the map. But then they are fighting orcs as well. They find out there's orcs. They hear there's necromancers. The dwarves control some areas, but can't really push on. And so the dwarves send a Nome Illusionist, a third level Nome Illusionist, with them to help them. Basically, that's the way that they're like, yes, we'll give you what information we can. We'll hold the front here, and we'll send this caster with you. And there's lots of fun stuff. Like they find out how to deal with poisoned water that's going around. That's obviously contaminated from somewhere by using hypnotic pattern on some gargoyles that are guarding the control room. And they also find like some secret room with a pool and some magic items, and come back down. And then they're exploring, and then they decide to go back onto the orc entrance they've previously been to and go and kill a bunch of orcs, because that's an obvious target, and that might be a way to go and find the necromancer, because the necromancer sounds like a target to go for. They think that that's something of interest. They run into into the areas, because they go to the orc living areas. They find the orc warlord with like 16 other orcs and goblins around, and with probably the perfect storm, most impressive array of luck I've ever seen. They had some good luck the next session, though not as good, but the best luck I've ever seen. They'd lost in the previous session, actually. They'd lost a couple of hirelings to a Duergar ambush. Basically, they'd been attacked by some orcs from the south, and the invisible Duergar, watching them, used the opportunity to hit them from the side, from the east, in these corridors. They saw the action. And they lost some hirelings there. But then they have gone, then survived, and then the next session they find the Orc Warlord and a bunch of orcs and goblins, and with grease and sleep and the Nome Illusionist colour spray, basically dropping all their wizard stuff out there, and pouring every attack they can in. They just knock out loads of them. They hold person works on the Orc Warlord. That's the relevant point. Is it works on the Orc Warlord, and so they defeat the Orc Warlord. They get all his magic stuff. They loot the area. They retreat, and then they're like talking with the dwarves. They're like, "Man, maybe we should go home soon. We pushed our luck. We've earned some XP." And they picked up some rumours. They're like, "We'll talk to the dwarves anyway next time about what we've heard." So they say to the dwarves, "Look, we've heard about the treasure in the Temple of Moradin. So what's that about?" And the dwarves are like, "Well, we control the temple, but there's no treasure." So they go there, and and it's great. One reason I have players roll encounter dice. Not everyone does. I do. Because you could say, well, I need to know all the secrets. I don't want them to know the distribution. I don't want them to start trying to predict stuff. I don't care. It's fine, generally speaking. So the players roll. They get the 1. They roll again on the sub-table. They get a 4, which is both patrol, basically, in the area. And in this case, it means the orcs have snuck in. That's the description for the area. This is, by the way, you should know this, but this is a lot of this is drawn from N5 beyond Ilafan, under Ilafan. I added this. Obviously, the Duergar are added, and everything to do with them. I've keyed out a lot of it because it's lightly keyed. It's a very interesting adventure that needs a bit more space, and it infamously has horrendous map organisation, and the maps don't always make sense. And there's some versions online I've found and used. But yeah, the orcs have snuck in, and this because it's a follow-up patrol. It is a caster, a troll, and a normal patrol, and they're waiting. And this leads into a really savage battle, really savage. And this is this session. We're caught up to date here. Session 60. I give small XP bonuses for journals. You can see this is the party. Lorfindar, Sabrata, Mo, Bryn, Robin, Jack von Karma, the NPC. Thord, who's the NPC dwarf they rescued. Goran, a new character, very lucky day for him to come in. A new player. 2 Lightfootmen, Shield Bearer, Doris the Gnome Illusionist, Gorn the Dwarf Cleric was backing them up and cast a few spells to help them. Some of the Dwarf Clerics had come to show them the temple. And yeah, you can see they drop everything. Spook, Invisibility, Sleep, later Detect Magic. Doris dropped a colour spray, I think. Lorfindar cast 5 spells. Von Karma slew a troll. But yeah, this was everything going. There were lots of injuries. I think Mo was knocked out, possibly. This character, Mo, was knocked out. Thord was killed, but was raised the next day. I actually forgot to say in Silver Swamp, on the way back, they investigate one last barrow, get random encountered by giant scorpions, who kill 2 of them. Now, because they're going to a temple of a god of death with power over it, who do still have an ability to raise dead. They as a payment and on the kind of bond of you will definitely go and deliver this message, they raise these two characters. So Willem and I think it's Bast was the other one, survived to fight another day. But yeah, Thord is going to be raised the next day, but we'll obviously have to recover. Mo was knocked out. The magic owl was knocked out. The surviving dog, because one of the two war dogs they'd bought had been killed in the Duergar ambush. That dog is nearly killed. It's on 1 hit point at the end. I think it was that he'd rolled, Andrew rolled 15 HP, 2d8, 15 HP, and it took 2 hits of 7 from a troll. The goblin cleric they captured, which is fun. Dropped a darkness on them all, which meant that for a turn around they're fighting in darkness. Gorn the cleric cast Continual Light to get rid of that, which helped them a lot. But just this chaos of all this happening. Very dangerous, even with sleeps and colour sprays knocking out the normal orcs and goblins. So even with most of those, not all of them, but knocked out by sleep and colour spray. And the spook, I think, was hit on the troll, who was out of action for 2 rounds or something, and then passed his save. Again, all their spells, just enough power to get through it, with some casualties, but nothing utterly crippling. And then they start searching for secret doors, because they're like, basically they just think there's secret doors here, and they're correct. There's a secret door into the stash house of the old, that was never found at the fall of Ilafan, of the Dwarven Kingdom here. They find that. They find a ladder. This goes up. The elf opens the door, the secret door, and sees the outlines of a statue in the next room via Infra. The way I credit Infra is that where there's not lots of heat, you can see sort of, if there's large objects, you can kind of see outlines, and there's a large statue-like object. But you can't see, like, if there's a couple of zombie corpses on the floor, you probably won't pick them up unless there's something really obvious about them. So this is just my way of doing it, so that it's not dark vision, but it's just giving a tiny bit more information than just, is there a massive heat signature of a living creature? You get a tiny bit more information, like, just over there, you can see there's a passage to the left. And, Goat is like, I think that's a statue. I'm going to go back and report anyway. Goes back and reports, and by now the Dwarf King has turned up, having been told of the hall, and is like, I'll come with you, I want to come with you. So they bring Corin Iron Axe up with them, or the wannabe king. And they come in, and the statue animates, of course, because this is what the elf cleric suspected. The reason he was going up was, at this point, he is the toughest character with infravision. The thieves in this party do not have infravision. There are 3. There's a gnome fighter thief, halfling fighter thief, didn't roll infra, and there are 2 human thieves. None of them have infra. And they want to go up as quietly as possible into this secret area, presumably. The Dwarf King knows the command word. So the fact that they'd found the stuff, the fact they were working with the dwarves, meant that they had Continual Light and, in fact, a Cure Light Wounds from the cleric, and a raised dead for their ally the next day. And it meant that they didn't have to fight this golem, when I think it would have been quite tough to fight this automaton. Deactivate that. They then find some rooms, and they kind of check everything for traps. They look through everything. But essentially here, one of these rooms is the Royal Panoply, and one of these rooms is the armory, the ancient armory, their hidden panoply and dressing room and an armory of the king, with one final guardian. They also find that that there is another entrance into this via the pool that they had drained from the control room down below, behind the gargoyles. They find that door. They hadn't explored further that way, so they've found everything. And the dwarves pay them 58,000 gold for like half the magic items, basically. As that's their stuff. And this means big campaign thing. This now means dwarves are going to flock to a rightly crowned king, even with the other factions. This is now crusade. This isn't just a kind of like, oh, should we go and resettle it? This is like, no, this is Brunel Battlehammer stuff. There is a king under the mountain again. So big setting thing that will influence things in the future, politics and adventures and stuff. And also the fact that because the characters are starting to pick up rumours, both in this and in my Other Realms campaign, of the fact that Bruenor is looking to go and explore the ancient ruins of Gauntlgrim and reclaim them. This now means there's a major extra dwarven shield dwarf player in the area, albeit one who needs help himself. But yeah, so very big event, massive campaign event in my view. And they get some very good stuff. They get a Mirror of Mental Prowess, which is an amazing item. They get a Helm of Brilliance. They get Dwarven Plate Mail, Short Sword of Quickness. This is stuff that the dwarves can tell them what it is. Gauntlets of Vega Power, Light Crossbow Speed, Magic Bolts. They also get this stuff they're giving back, actually, to the dwarves, but they will get the XP for it, as if it, for stuff they've used. And that is magic, but they don't know what it is, because they got it off the Orc Warlord. So yeah, that's where we are. Now, they've got a problem, that yes, they've got 9, potentially 10 PC, or 8, potentially 10, depending on who exactly is there this coming Sunday, PCs present, plus a strong, decent, albeit first level, henchman. They're several days from home with a lot of stuff. They have some options for what they do, though, so they'll have to work that out, and I need to chase them up, actually, on that. One thing I will... and at that point, they're going to be training people, basically. That is the big thing that's going to be happening, as you can see. I'll just quickly say, then they're going to be deciding what happens next. You can see this. They put maps in here. And here are the summer jobs. We're about to hit autumn, so some of these will shift. It's potentially the case that some will expire, or some will change the circumstances. Things will change on the ground because the players haven't resolved them. I did that at the end of... so Crail Hold was a spring, which was a mission, was an adventure we talked about last time. Siege, that they fought, that was a spring adventure. If they hadn't got there by the end of spring, it would have fallen, and the orcs would have burnt it. And they only got there just in time, like a week before the end of spring. Bowshot Caves actually changed within a month, initially with orcs turning up, due to the fact the players hadn't gone there. These are very small things. Most of these aren't going to matter that much, but the players will pick up on some of them. And having stuff that actually rewards, even if it theoretically punishes what the players have done, is good, not bad. Players feel like their actions matter. So the remaining stuff they've got then, at the end of summer, is continue to investigate Bowshot Caves. Kaitamar has agreed to go to Vesper from Vesper Hearth to the Temple of Kalemvor and Neverwinter to carry a message. They've got some continue to investigates there and there. Here, this is... they could go back to Amgul Manor then, I guess. They've got some ideas about that. They've got some rumours. They will get... this one has obviously been heavily influenced, actually, and changed. They will get new rumours and new leads. There is actually one rumour a character has received, because it's from their mentor. But that will presumably be added as well. So there's going to be a variety of things. We've got parties in 2 places. I don't know if that will mean they set up base in 2 places. That's a legitimate and positive thing, as in the campaign spreading and taking over more of the world is good, not bad. But obviously, it depends on players. I know in my Greyhawk game, players are like, yeah, we'll happily, maybe we'll go as far as Verbabunk. We should possibly think about doing more here. But currently, I'm interested in a rumour that's as far away as Kaeland, because they're like, that's a long way to the south comparatively. So yeah, different players are more or less interested in the kind of the big scale, big scope stuff. So that is where we're up to. 60 sessions in. I mean, yeah, roughly, if we think about it like that, 100, from what I said earlier, 150 hours in. I'll put the link to this campaign in the description if you want to join or have a look. Share some of your recent big hauls and your adventures in the comments. Till next time.